Hi, folks. Welcome back. If you thought Democrats couldn't get any dumber, just wait until you see today's highlight reel. We're living in a moment where they can't decide if Trump is a dictator, a zombie, or a cartoon villain, but somehow Rosie O'Donnell thinks his ear has the power to resurrect itself. So buckle up, because these clips today, well, they aren't just politics. They're a master class in self-parody.
Who called for an insurrection?
Yeah.
And then did not call the National Guard to come help people. And people died and got hurt. That is on him.
What?
And his assassination attempt, a man died during that assassination attempt.
You're blaming him?
Yeah. A man died.
You're blaming Trump for that?
Yeah.
And it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And his ear miraculously healed. Ladies and gentlemen, will anyone in the news ever say that without couching it? Yeah. His ear miraculously regenerated. People, what else do you need?
Rosie O'Donnell transcends being objectively dishonest at this point, and here's why, folks. What she's doing here isn't just gossip. It's performance art for a culture that has blurred the line between conspiracy theory and political discourse. Just think about it. She's blaming Trump for not calling the National Guard on January 6th, then somehow pivoting to blame Trump for Cory Comparatore's murder during the Pennsylvania assassination attempt. That's not logic. That's next-level derangement. And then comes the icing on the cake, claiming Trump's ear miraculously regenerated like he's Wolverine or something. This isn't about facts anymore for these people. It's about feeding this rabid Democrat base that needs constant outrage to survive. Rosie knows her audience isn't looking for any sort of evidence. They're looking for narrative. And the narrative is always that Trump is both omnipotent and guilty of everything, even while getting shot. It reveals something bigger about our cultural moment. Democrats don't just want control of the language, they want to twist it into a morality play where reality is optional and faith in their narrative is mandatory, with threat of social excommunication as punishment for challenging the orthodoxy. That's why this stuff matters, folks. It's not about whether Rosie is crazy or deranged. It's about how mainstream figures like her normalize a culture of delusion that bleeds into media, classroom, and politics and leaves ordinary Americans wondering if truth itself has any value left. And speaking of struggling with the truth, head Pillsbury Doughboy out in Illinois, JB Pritzker, is not really happy about law and order coming to his state.
Do you have any sense even of the scope of the ICE operation that they're planning?
Not from ICE. We're getting, again, it's all secondhand, third-hand. There are a lot of patriotic Americans who work in the administration or work at the departments or in the military who have let us know things without, having permission to do so. And so I would call some of that rumor, but, well-sourced rumors.
It's truly interesting to see that Democrats are against law and order at every level of government they serve in, truly bringing the anti-American spirit straight into the government itself. Here you have Governor JB Pritzker openly admitting that he's relying on patriotic Americans inside the federal government and even the military to leak him information about potential ICE operations, information they clearly don't have permission to share. Think about what that means, folks. Instead of cooperating with federal enforcement, he's treating national security leaks like gossip tips in a political campaign. And he frames it as patriotism, when in reality it's undermining lawful authority for the sake of protecting sanctuary policies that enable chaos. This is the bigger pattern with Democrats, folks. They rebrand defiance of federal law as virtue, and ordinary Americans are supposed to accept that well-sourced rumor is acceptable basis for governance. It exposes a culture where leaks, resistance, and sabotage are not just tolerated, but celebrated, even when they weaken institutions and put public safety at risk. And that's how we got here. Partisanship elevated over principle, with leaders modeling for citizens that the law is optional if you don't like who's in charge. And there's no greater example of that Democrat dissonance than Mayor Karen out here in Los Angeles, who has been railing all week about the ICE raids.
Since the TRO has been in place, they are still racially profiling people and essentially hunting folks down in workplaces. That is just completely inappropriate and according to the courts is not legal.
Truly amazing. And by amazing, I mean awful. This is communist propaganda, folks, and here's why. Mayor Karen isn't just criticizing ICE enforcement. She's reframing it as racial profiling and hunting people down. Language designed to turn law enforcement into villains and illegal immigrants into martyrs. That's not legal analysis. It's just straight up agitprop, agitation propaganda. What she's really doing is trying to delegitimize federal authority by portraying the courts as a last line of defense against an out-of-control administration, when in reality, the administration is carrying out the most basic responsibility of any government, enforcing its borders, protecting our national sovereignty. This rhetoric doesn't happen in a vacuum. It reflects a broader Democrat strategy that dominates media and academia, where the rule of law is recast as oppression and illegal entry is repackaged as a civil right. The implications are huge with this. If enough people accept this framing, the concept of citizenship itself becomes meaningless, and the state's role shifts from protecting its citizens to managing a perpetual narrative of victimhood. That's why this moment matters, because it shows how far the cultural institutions have drifted from truth and how committed Democrat leaders are to turning propaganda into public policy. So the question becomes, how much longer are we willing to be governed by narratives instead of reality? If every institution we once trusted, that being media, universities, even local leaders, keep telling us that enforcing the law is tyranny and that chaos is justice, what kind of country do we end up with? At what point do we stop nodding along with these Democrat slogans and start asking who benefits from their constant inversion of truth? These aren't just political skirmishes anymore, folks. They're cultural stress tests revealing whether America still values order, honesty, and accountability, or whether we've surrendered those to the loudest voices in the room. And if that's the case, are we really citizens anymore, or just spectators in a show written by Democrats who think reality is optional? You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.